I really like to put in my stories all the crazy things that I do and that my friends do and the things I kind of subject myself to people. You know, I play a lot of jokes on people at my show, and I'm constantly like trying to figure out how to get into people's emails and send emails like, oh my God, I'm pregnant, Mom. I know I've only been dating this guy for a couple of weeks, but I think this is going to be perfect.
I loved law school, but the practice of law was really not for me. When I got to a very large firm in Manhattan, I knew right away that I was not happy and that I wanted to return to my real passion for writing. But I had loans to pay off, so I paid them off, and in the meantime I wrote a young adult novel over the course of four or 5 years, and was able to find an agent, and that manuscript was met with rejection across the board. And at this point I was close to turning 30, and I remember thinking that this was, you know, I wasn't married, I didn't have children. Yes, my first foray into publishing failed by any objective standard, but I just thought I should try again.
Is this true that Grub Street referred to me as the elder statesman or an elder statesman of food? Boy, you know, it's funny for you know, until like yesterday I was, you know, or a few years ago I was still people like the bad boy chef. You know, it had been a long time since I've been bad. I'm sure as hell not a boy, and it's been 10 years since I've been a working chef. So now, elder statesman of food. Well, elder, yeah. Statesman, I don't know whether I would ever use that in the same sentence as me. Food, yeah, I do like food.
Interaction with my fans is really critical for me. When I first started writing, maybe, you know, that was before we had a website. And it was much more difficult to get in touch with me. I would get a few letters once in a while, snail mail. Remember that? Whatever happened to that? Now, we just hear from hundreds of thousands of people all the time. And so we know what they love about the books, and we know what they're not so crazy about the books. We know where they live. We know who they are. It's like a big, huge extended family. It's worldwide. I mean, it's just, it's amazing.
The new book, I think it still has some funny things in it, but there is essentially no satire. It's just, it's made up stories coming out of the scariest parts of myself. And to me that was a risk. You're very well defended when you're making fun of stuff. You feel smart. If you're making fun of the culture, if you're satirizing it, you're the smart one, and the culture is the stupid one. When you let go of that, you run the risk of being the stupid one yourself.
I never grew up thinking that I was going to be a novelist. I grew up loving to read, though, and I think that played a big role in eventually becoming a novelist. I remember reading, and I had this wonderful class in college, American fiction since the 1950s, and I read, you know, Catcher in the Rye and Slaughterhouse-Five and Catch-22, all these great books. You know, I read books by John Cheever and Vladimir Nabokov, and I remember reading those and saying, wow, you know, this is really great. I just love the voice here, but at the same time I love the voice of modern authors, let's say Stephen King. And I say, well, if I like this so much, why don't I give it a try?
Well, the fans are extremely various. I've had fan mail from people as young as 10 and as old as 96. Now, the people in their 90s mostly tend to say, well, when is your next book coming out? I'm not going to last much longer, and I want to be in the series. In fact, when is the next book coming out is what they all say. But beyond that, I do get rather unusual questions and things like that. The most unusual thing that's happened at a book signing, well, I have been asked to autograph various things, including people. I have, in the past year or so, had at least 3 young women come up to me at Barnes & Noble book signings, turn around, lower their pants to show me that they have a tramp stamp with Dami Vasia Mile across their rumpus, which is, of course, a line from Catullus that's quoted in one of my books. It means, give me 1,000 kisses.
I always loved writing in school. I loved English, but writer was never on my to-do list. I was just on that road. I wanted to be a fashion designer. It was all I ever wanted to do. So I never wanted to be anything else. So I think once You know, I remember when I was 21, I had my first runway show, and I had this moment where I was like, I did it. But I'm only 21. So that was when I started exploring other options, saying, what else do I love to do? And I love anything creative, so writing was an option that I looked into, and I just ended up falling in love with it.
I'll tell you some fans I'm meeting now that I love these guys. Because of The Innocent Man and The Confession, these books about innocence and wrongful conviction, I'm really active with innocence projects around the country, and there are several of them. And so I go to these innocence projects to do dinners and fundraisers, and they always have some of the exonerees there. Anywhere you go in the country, they're going to pull in their exonerees. And these are guys who served 20 years, completely innocent. A lot of them were troubled young men when they went in and read very little. But in prison, they became these avid readers, and they've read every book. And they tell me how much the books meant to them in prison, especially with the legal, background and angles and all that. And there are times when I've gotten choked up, and they've gotten choked up. These guys, some on death row, and those are the fans I can't get enough of these days.
It's a voyage of a lifetime. It'll end with my last conscious thought on Earth. It's taken me places I could not believe. I've traveled parts of the globe I would not be there except for reading. I've visited the graves of poets in Crete. I've visited Balzac's grave in France. I've gone to graves all over Europe just because I fell in love with these men and women who are no longer alive, who once filled my brain with utter wonder, who wanted me to write like them, who wanted me to make characters and build characters, invent cities, invent people that were so magnificent, people would never be able to keep their hands off my books again, like these ones that went before me, like these writers who made up my reading life.